develop an enhanced capital improvement plan for fleet, facilities, and technology, initiate a compensation study, develop a compensation philosophy, review future staffing plan in coordination with the 2021 budget process, and then staff to present a recommendation for a low-cost paving project. So those are the action steps. A lot of big ones there too. And I guess I want to reiterate, some of these will be postponed due to lack of time because of the pandemic. But these are action steps that we feel would take a step towards the short-term goal. So happy to listen to any feedback on that.
Okay, I'll start on this one. I think certainly the test roll, I think we should be moving forward with that and getting all the pieces in place. We can decide as we go how much we're going to spend or whether we have the wherewithal or want to take the risk on with everything else that's going on, but that doesn't mean we should take it off of the schedule. Northwest Surface Metro Water Supply Study, I think we need to be a big player in that. I guess I don't understand what the enhanced capital improvement plan for fleet, facilities, and technology. It's a big sentence. I don't understand what it is. So.
Sure. And really what we have now is we have an adequate capital improvement plan for fleet, for example, for the squads, for dump trucks, those types of things. The biggest additions here are probably really facilities. So this goes into do we have a plan for facilities? Are we going to use this campus? Should we start talking about relocating city campus down the road? When should we start thinking about a public safety building? For park planning, when should we invest in city parks? This is a really gigantic discussion, but it really is more an enhancement of the CIP for not just fleet, but facilities, and then also technology. We've had some good ideas about when we're increasing, for example, emergency outdoor sirens and what technology could be leveraged on those siren locations. That's just one small discussion. So it's a really, really big discussion, but I think for the time being, the reason it was on there, I believe, was some discussion about campus planning. And so we just kind of had a comprehensive approach to this.
Okay. Well, it's certainly something we need to be looking at and working on. The compensation, initiate a compensation study, develop compensation philosophy. I agree with that. I think it's we need to, right now, we seem to, well, we really don't have a fixed philosophy that certainly this council has articulated. And I think in fairness to Brad, in order to manage his staff and to manage employee retention or not, we need to have a philosophy behind that so he can steer his compensation accordingly. And I think, in my mind, that's probably going to take a work session in order to work through it because there's a lot of subtleties there. The staffing plan, those things kind of would amplify, and the low-cost paving, we've had that on the agenda forever, and we're moving forward with that. Okay, Councilmember Schultz.
Yeah, I think well, we're well along with the establishment of a test well, so I don't see how we should stop that at this point until we find out more about what's going on, because that's going to drive a lot of growth for us. Same with the Northwest Metro surface water supply study. I think we should stay close with that to keep our options open. I'd like to hear more about the facilities needs, I guess. I think that's a bigger discussion. I reiterate what the mayor said about the compensation study. It'd be good to hear what other cities are doing, especially cities of our size and tax capacity. So I don't want to be comparing ourselves to Minneapolis or other larger suburbs, but cities of our similar situation. And then we've also already had discussion on low-cost paving options to continue that as well. So that's all I really have to say on that.
Okay, Councilmember Dejewski.
Yeah, as I looked over these, I felt 1, 2, and 6 were pretty easy to just go with. It makes sense, and things that we've already talked about as priorities. 3, 4, and 5, I had more of a yellow as opposed to a green concept for, because I had the same question you did, Mr. Mayor, about what an enhanced capital improvement plan means. Yes, the facilities we're talking about need to be planned for. I think it's a bigger issue than trying to incorporate it into a CIP. I think it's going to be a much bigger chunk to separate out from CIP, and that would be obviously a part of it. If there are elements of it that needed to be incorporated into it. The compensation philosophy, I've always been fuzzy on this thing. I don't understand what it means to me. So if you guys can clarify as we go through this compensation philosophy idea, maybe it'll come clear to me and I'll think it's the best thing ever. But up until then, I've functioned all of my life without a compensation philosophy, and it's worked out just fine, whether I supervise people or not. So, but I'm sure there's a value to it, so I'm open to hearing that. And then future staffing plan, I just put a yellow next to that because, again, being in our uncertain times as a result of what we're going through, we need to plan for what we need and then also being mindful of being cautious financially.
Okay, Councilmember Bottom.
Yeah, I think the test well, obviously I'm on board with that. Brad and I had some conversations today discussing the financing of it. We gotta make sure that we don't get into some situation where we desperately need certain things to happen to finance that thing. And if that happens, you don't get choices, you get things forced upon you. So I want to make sure that our financing is in order for that. Just as an example, we looked at if we do finance a well, there are going to be some monies that flow to us rather than Maple Grove. Those kind of things to tighten up and that's good. That'll help actually finance the project and, tighten or sharpen the pencils about the finance of that. I think 3, 4, and 3 is the process. Part of that is the process that Ron and Ken and the rest of the council started 20 years ago was we had to finance everything. And we sort of moved towards, I won't speak for Brad, but I think we've moved towards what can we pay for out of pocket rather than bonding for? And I don't know if that's a continuation of that. Obviously, that leaves the city in a much better financial situation. So I like at least the concept of capital improvement plans and not bonding for everything. 4 and 5, we have talked about the kind of what are we going to do about staff? Some of the plans for, when we reach this, what do we need when we reach that? In 2022, we're going to need this person. And I think part of it is what positions are we going to need? And then also, we talked about, do we hire new people at the front end of their career and letting them develop? Or do we hire people in the middle of their career and pay them top dollar and have them stick around for 15 years? Or do we, there are different overarching needs for the town, and also as far as operationally, and then the who is what kind of people do you want to bring in? And there are different segments of the working population that I think we could either hone in on or not have a chance at, or whatever. We could I think it's part of what we've asked and we'll get from Brad later in the year. And so I think that's something that is already in the works. So I would expect we'd see that no matter what, because there are hirings that we're going to do over the next year, and we need some philosophy on some of the hirings and why and who and how. And number 6, my hang up on the paving was the speed limits. And I think we moved, and I want to make sure we can control them, and I like the idea of having a low-cost paving plan, and I hope it's worth all the effort and we get something out of it.
Okay, Councilmember Anderson.
You guys summarized it well. 1 and 2 certainly were well underway. 5 and 6, I understand that we've made good progress on. 3 and 4 are, I think, important. This is sort of aspirational. I doubt that we're going to get that, but we can really get it done this year. I think we've got plenty of fires burning that we need to keep under control. But they should be on the list, and we should see if we can at least nibble away at it. So it's good stuff.
Okay. Any other comments? Follow-up? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. We don't need any action on this, do we, Brett?
No, so Mayor and Council, what my plan is to incorporate this. I'll probably edit it and send it out to you all via email and see if you have any last comments on it before we bring it back to a council meeting for approval. And with a gigantic caveat that this is the plan now, and obviously basic services responding to the pandemic is going to overtake quite a few of these for the time being.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 9B, which is the 2020 Financial Management Plan.
And Mayor and Council, my intent here is this to be relatively quick, but that's up to you. I really wanted to have a follow-up from the February 13th work session. And this is just an updated finance plan from what we talked about. And I emailed out the back and forth between Tammy and I, and really outlined the changes. So really, it's the following: the updated narrative of the reserve policy, the addition of some projected non-residential growth, enhanced language on park improvements. This did not get as enhanced as I wanted to. I wanted to actually, as the council said, have kind of a when we invest in parks and have a plan for when park dedication revenue would come in. I just don't have time right now to pull that together. So my goal is in the next year's version of it to clean that up. The inclusion of a 2029 project. This is a North Sewer Connection project. This really would connect Northeast Corcoran with Southeast Corcoran, where we flush it towards at City Hall and goes north of Mama G's. And we wanted to put that somewhere in the plan. Now, it might get bumped beyond 2029, but it showed a significant investment that we wanted to at least put on paper. It also updated the language regarding the Northeast trunk water fee requirements. This was talked about in the previous item, where anyone coming in before we have a water system has to pay both fees, and that's their choice essentially. We have to start getting these fees now versus later. We also have a paragraph including on paving gravel roads, and then there's some clarification on the language and hopefully some improved readability of the tables. So that's all I have. Happy to answer questions, but the goal would be to have the council accept this plan. It doesn't mean we're doing everything, it's just accepting it, and then we'll work off of this for the 2021 budget. A specific example is we have clear direction from the council that the tax rate can't go up unless there's very, very, very good reason in 2021. So although this shows how potentially could react, the budget I bring you will be different from even the first year of this plan. So I'll stop there.
Okay, let's take comments. Let's start this time with Councilmember Schultz.
I don't have any comments on it.
Okay, Councilmember Jajewski.
Brett, thanks for sending out that additional document. That was very, very helpful. At least for me it was. Being able to see what was incorporated and how it all changed. I was able to go back then and review some of the wording and the changes. I thought it did have significant changes it would impact quite a bit as a result of those changes. Just inclusion of the Northeast Sewer Connection project, for example, or the commercial tax base, both of those things were huge. But they were all reflected, and it helps to see kind of the feedback being incorporated. So after reviewing both of those documents, I'm fine with it.
Okay, Councilmember Bottom.
I have no comment.
Okay, Councilmember Anderson.
Yes, this was easier for me to read. I thought the comments were incorporated well, so I'm happy with it.
Okay. And I felt, I think it's a great, not a great improvement because it was pretty good before, but it's clarified a lot of small items. I did have one question. I think I asked this before, and I've seen there's 2 mentions of a water tower in there, and they both say that we're going to do a water tower on the southeast. Is that supposed to be the southeast or is it the northeast?
So Mayor and Council, both essentially. In this plan, we had a significant update to projections for growth as well as water and sewer because of that. And one of the things, this is related to the trunk fees for southeast Corcoran specifically. We know at some point we run out of water for Maple Grove and we have to have our own water in Corcoran for southeast. And that requires tower, treatment, well. And so our narrative there is basically saying, noting that has to happen. And we have a very significant expenditure along with it. And so the narrative is, because of that, we're going to be steadily increasing our per acre trunk fees in southeast to accommodate a future major investment for the water in southeast Corcoran.
Okay. So that's what the southeast one's called out. We were looking for the northeast one, and it's not in there at all. But other than that, I have no comments on the plan, I guess. And I encourage any of the public who's listening in, if they're interested in the finances of the city, this is a great document for them to look at and get educated on if they have an interest in it. Any follow-up comments on the finance plan? Okay, hearing none, we don't need any action on that, do we?
Actually, we get a motion to accept.
Okay, I'll consider a motion to accept the 2020 financial plan, management plan as presented.
So move. Anderson.
Second, Schultz.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bodema,
Aye.
Dejewski,
Aye.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to new business, item 10A, which is the Appaloosa Woods neighborhood meeting recap.
Just to stall there, Mr. Mayor and Council, this is another opportunity for anyone listening. If they wanted to speak on any item under new business, they could dial *9 now. Jessica, for the record, how many do we have listening where we live?
We still have one person listening.
One person, one brave person listening live right now. So we'll just give them a few seconds if they're interested in pressing *9 or not. All right, we're going to move forward. As the mayor said, the next item is the Appaloosa Woods neighborhood meeting recap. Let me slide forward. Bear with us. All right. So the first slide, just an overview of the area. There's a boundary, it's hard to see in there, but it's a neighborhood off of Corcoran 101, north of Shuddy. And there's 17 properties that are in Corcoran and quite a few properties in Maple Grove. I believe the original Corcoran properties was closer to 27. Some have been annexed into Maple Grove since that time. But the city of Maple Grove is doing a pavement project in 2021, and they asked Corcoran to see if we want to be a part of it in some format. So this meeting was to provide overview of the project for the residents and get some feedback from them. So if you want to move to the next slide, yes, we presented 3 different options essentially. One, do nothing, keep the Corcoran's portion gravel. There's moderate support for that. I went over an opportunity for paving the gravel with assessments, and I used our assessment policy we have and roughly said maybe assessments around $11,000 or so, but that could be on the low side. There's actually quite a bit of support for that from the 10 surveys that were provided. And then there was an overarching project to pave actually start with install water, sewer, and pave a whole big project, and there are significant costs passed on by Maple Grove for that project, for them to recover the costs they've done in the past. It's on a per acre, and there was very little support for that project, not too surprising. Some other factors, just to reference, is that Maple Grove is going to discontinue grading our road following this project, and that's not being mean. They just want to get out of the grading business, and they not want to grade any longer. They would say, you know, they're not going to pick up the plow in the winter and not snow plow, but they want to get out of the grading business. So that's another factor in just we want to maintain and drive our grader all along this area. So next slide, Jess. So we're looking at some direction from council on how to proceed. As I mentioned, fairly significant support does exist for a paving project. This actually could be, or would be, a lower cost project that we try to do. Now that being said, it's probably on the expensive end because it's a pretty expensive project and Kevin could go through this. But if we wanted to do that, we would obtain a feasibility study and a letter of benefit, which we think would cost between $3,000 and $5,000. The $2,000 gap there is for whether or not we need soil borings and how much for soil borings. So that's the gap between $3,000 and $5,000. If we do it on the cheap side, it could be $3,000, but if in case there's soil borings, we want to do that. And then we have to get a letter of benefit to really prove what the assessments could be, so then we can put together the finance of it to see what the finance gap is. Right now, we pay Maple Grove, $2,100 a year to maintain it, which is very affordable. They were surprised it was at that level, the leadership level, so you're getting a pretty good deal. But really looking forward, how much information you want on this? Do you want to issue a feasibility study and try to do a project next year? From a staff level, we think it makes sense to pave this area and not have to drive a grader around to maintain it. We also feel there's potential to have a relatively small finance gap if we do assessments of the properties there. So that's all I have. Looking for direction from you guys.
Okay, we'll start out this one with Dejewski for comments or questions.
Brad, did you have anywhere on here, maybe I missed it, what's the length of the road that we're looking at?
Bear with me, I'll find that quick. I do not have it in this document.
So as I reviewed this, I just was struck by how expensive this would be for these residents to get sewer and water. As I read over the comments, yes, the numbers say what you're saying, Brad, that the numbers in the vote said we just want it to be paved, but the comments said we just wanted it to be paved because it's so darn expensive to get sewer and water. And there were a few that said they liked their, septic well because they just put it in and it's in good shape, and I get that. But there were quite a few that said, I'd love to have sewer and water, but there's no way I can afford that. I'm either retiring or it's just too expensive for us or whatever. Can you help me understand why this is so expensive? I mean, I see that there's double fees in this case because of Maple Grove and Corcoran requiring connection fees. Is that just based on this policy that we've talked about, or what? That was a concern of mine. I obviously wanted to have it paved, everyone, at the very minimum. And then I'd like to get some more information on option 4 with regard to what are the pluses and the pros and cons with regard to annexing, having Maple Grove annex this section of the city and how that would be compensated or so forth.
Great, Council, I'll try to jump in there. And I know quickly the length of the road. It is very expensive, but a lot of them obviously pass through fees. So you mentioned the Maple Grove fees. Well, they have a per acre trunk fee that they use, and its lump sum includes water, sewer, stormwater, and streets. And that's the $50,000 acre number or whatever. And then you actually have the cost. So that's the overall trunk fee for the regional infrastructure. So for stormwater, for example, they have regional ponds they've developed, and they spread those costs across the acreage. Similarly with the water and sewer infrastructure, this trunk pipe infrastructure, and sewer infrastructure, lift stations, force mains. So that's the basic infrastructure that you then can connect your lateral system to. So yeah, you're double feeing because you have to pay for all those trunk fees and then the actual cost of the specific project. This area was extremely expensive because how low it is. So that's really the cost behind it. I agree with you. There were a few people that said they're not interested in the water and sewer because of the expense, not that they didn't want water and sewer. Regarding the annexation discussion, we didn't have that very much at the meeting because it's a policy discussion, and neither city from a policy level wants to either detach or annex this area. It would require every one of those 17 people to pay the trunk fees. So we essentially would be handing them over to Maple Grove and saying, you now all have to pay these gigantic fees. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Any other? Brian? Okay, Councilmember Lovato?
Yeah, Brad and I have had pretty extensive conversations on this property, and I talked and thought a lot about the annexation part, and I have some pride around being the 15th biggest city in Minnesota, and I wouldn't want to lose the land, but half of me thinks that would make sense. But Brad said there's no appetite for either the people living there or the city of Maple Grove or the city of Corcoran to do that. And I guess I mean, a lot of thought has gone into this, and I don't have any questions. And I'm comfortable answering the vote with the information I've already got.
Okay. Councilmember Anderson?
It was really helpful to actually look at the surveys that were filled out. Thanks for sending that out. And I agree that people might be more interested in water if it weren't so darn expensive. I think we should do the roads. It's just, we can get started for a feasibility study is not extravagant, and we should just kind of march forward with it and see where it goes.
Okay. Okay, my comments are, I agree. I think we have very few choices here. I think the road needs to be done. I think this is a problem that's going to fester forever. And I don't see any other option right now than to kick the can down the road. And fixing the roads and then we can do. I would have to do that. So that's kind of my comments. Councilmember Schultz?
Yeah, I don't think number 4 is on the table at all, and I totally understand why people want to shy away from city sewer and water because of the cost. It's cheaper to put in new well and septic than to hook up the city sewer and water under those numbers. With regards to paving, is there a cost savings to these residents to pave at the same time that Maple Grove is paving or not? I mean, would it cost them more for us to pave later other than the cost of materials going up?
No, we assess based upon the benefit to the property from going to a less favorable condition to a more favorable condition. Where it would be beneficial is it likely could reduce the finance gap if we can work together on a project. And so that'd be best for city resources to reduce that gap.
Okay. Do we have any estimates of what the cost would be to maintain gravel on that street for a year? Yeah, I'm assuming we're not going to put down dust control for that small of area or something like that, but just straight running a grader down it a couple times a year.
I have not. We can certainly do that as part of the feasibility study. essentially would be just that. I imagine with this project, we'd want to likely get the road up, if it were to stay gravel, we want to add gravel to it probably, so we wouldn't be hauling a bunch of trucks on new pavements. And then it would be, yeah, grading twice a year probably.
Okay.
So,
And- Would the paving option include curb and, would it include a curb then, or is it just the top of road surface?
it would continue to be a rural section with ditches.
Okay. And I think you have to go forward with a feasibility study, especially given the low-lying area around there, not knowing what's beneath the soil. I'd hate to put asphalt down on it and have it buckle and cave due to frost and whatnot.
Okay. Let's move on to a motion, entertain a motion to authorize staff to complete a feasibility study, annotate the letter of benefit for a potential paving project.
So move, Schultz.
Second, Tajewski.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, Thomas, I. Anderson,
Aye.
Latimer,
Aye.
Dejewski,
Aye.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, on to item 10B, which is the dust control program.
Mayor Council, it's that time of year to talk dust control. I will start out by saying that unfortunately it had a pretty substantial increase in price. Pat saw this coming. We got really good bids a couple of years ago. We did budget for some increased cost, but not 18%. So as of now, as proposed, with keeping the assessments, the fees to property owners the same, we have a budget gap of just shy of $12,000. In my mind, I feel this is important for not increasing fees right now to people. So if we just kept the same fees to people as last year and just picked up the gap ourselves, I think we'd be okay. Councilor, did you just get a good question, just on average, what are the fees? I think I answered, the biggest one was around $102, and the average was around $77 for most people. So it's not a gigantic fee, but rather than increasing those, just my recommendation is to move forward with the project, same fee structure as last year, and then proceed forward with the public hearing on May 28th. The biggest change really is eliminating half a mile of steep road that's now paved. And then Kevin did a really nice job working with Mike to put this from an Excel spreadsheet onto a GIS map. And we actually caught some irregularities, so we'll probably end up really blowing this up next year based upon what we learned from this year. But that's all I have. Looking for a motion to approve the resolution if acceptable to proceed with the project.
Okay, let's start with comments from Councilmember Bottom.
Yeah. How you doing, Jeffy?